What role can a digital interface play in the bridal retail experience? And I wanted to understand the symbologies of a wedding dress to guide my design direction. So what we see here is the 20 references that I used, and I've just used all these to try to link everything laterally from the digital experience to the retail experience. I was having quite a bit of problem with trying to link everything, but thanks to Ziggy, she really helped me understand and shift me into the right direction. So the whole idea is to look at the ritual of the wedding, to understand the ritual of the wedding, and you could look at it from a broad sense and what that means for a wedding dress. And I wanted to look into the whole idea of planning for a wedding and the whole notion of buying a wedding dress has sort of become a ritual in itself. So this is why I've mapped out the major themes of fantasy and reality. Right. So these are the concepts that were emerging in all the articles and the references I had, and placing that back to the ritual in a sense of a traditional notion of the ritual and a contemporary version of it. And these are the mappings of all that. So we can see here that on the top right-hand, left-hand corner of fantasy and traditional, one of the examples is the Cinderella story and how that relates to the bride. And this article here says, with a newspaper article of Disney wanting to start up their own collection of wedding dresses based on Disney characters. So a designer was going to make up a new collection of dresses inspired from Cinderella or Ariel or the character from the Beauty and the Beast. So this whole notion plays up the really fantasy end of the traditional aspect of where it's going in the bridal retail industry. I also wanted to relate it back to where my mum is. So this is a Google map of my mum's shop. So it's in High Street, Armadale, and along this shopping strip of 700 metres, we see 16 wedding dress shops. So that this could be from designer stores to just stores like my mum's that sell all range of dresses. And so I've placed her amongst the sort of the midpoint, but she has, all the shops there have some sort of a notion of playing up the fantasy aspect. So that's where it is now. And also, if we look at here, this is the industry report of the whole wedding industry, and it states that the wedding industry is pretty much reliant on disposable income and the rate of weddings in Australia. So I guess if these start to go down, this affects the revenue in the wedding industry. So this whole article industry report ties it in with what the state of the wedding industry is at the moment, and it's predicted to slowly decline over the next 10 years and this is particularly due to the fact that there's not so many weddings around in context with our population rate. So they call this So this is referenced back to the ABS, Australian Bureau of Statistics report, and it states that there's a crude marriage rate of the crude marriage rate is an indication of population and the marriage rate. So if the population is getting bigger, but the marriage rate is sort of leveling off, this means that in reference to our population, the crude marriage rate is sort of going down. So this is a future trend that is starting to happen in Australia. And also, if we were to look at this reference here, this is quite a very important reference. It's a book called White Weddings, and this book has told me a lot about the notion of a white wedding and where it is today and where it's come from. It is from reading this book. Chris says that in the beginning, weddings were a notion of a symbol of religion, and it sort of was what held heterosexuality together. And this notion of Western wedding, from the traditional aspect, has sort of evolved due to consumerism and advertising and, you know, like Disney, all these popular culture that sort of plays up the whole notion of fantasy. And this is what is pretty much driving the industry today. And you know, there's a sort of change from the traditional aspect and the consumerist aspect. So we can see that shift that's been happening. I decided not to put it so far in the contemporary section because it's just where the industry is currently at the moment, and we can see examples of this right now by the wedding of Prince William and Kate. I forgot what her last name is, but the whole media is sort of playing into this notion of the perfect wedding, and it's starting to snowball again because, you know, the Herald Sun has just asked my mum to borrow some of her dresses so they can do another short article about wedding dresses, and they want to sort of link it to the perfect wedding of Prince William and everything. And this is all like driving like the wedding industry again. Another interesting aspect is we look at the contemporary notions of the ritual of you know, planning for a wedding, and we can see that, you know, this is a patent of a customizable wedding dress. So if you go to a shop, you can get all these pieces and customize. The bride can pretty much customize her own design on the spot due to this wedding dress, and these all have adjustable straps. I'm not sure if you can see it properly. Adjustable straps, and they all link up together, and they have different sizes. And you know, this is quite an interesting notion, but I'm not sure how it would have been applied into real life. You know, I haven't seen any examples of these in real life, but it's just a patent, so I don't think it did very well. Also, here we have interesting reports about, you know, the iPad and tablet PCs being used in the retail experience. So this one here is Clinique's notion of great skincare. So, you know, you use your iPad and you key in some facts about your skin, and in 90 seconds they'll give you a whole suite of products that is catered to your you know, your skin quality or your own So I guess, you know, there's a shift of the retail experience moving towards this sector, but it's more in revisiting a sort of reality and not a notion of fantasy. Another interesting article was using the internet to customize your wedding dresses. So one of the key points for this article is that women who had mobile phones or were used to technology were more inclined to spend more time customizing their own wedding dresses, and this could be seen as, you know, a future direction of where it could lead to. And I sort of this is sort of a more play on reality. So there's not much fantasy when you look at the arrangement of how to customize your own wedding dress, because it just shows the dress and shows ways it could be custom. And another interesting article was, it wasn't an article actually, just the insight of the traditional notion of, you know, the whole ritual of buying a wedding dress. So I was watching a lot of some of the wedding TV shows, and it showed that when the bride went to try her dresses, she would always be accompanied by lots of her friends and her family, and this would help her gain advice. So I sort of put that in the traditional area. And in contrast to that, this is what one of the articles that I found on the internet. It was stating some brides were going on forums to seek out issues of cultural ambivalence, and what's interesting about that is that they're using the internet to connect with other people to resolve these issues, and not using or going to their friends or family. So this is an interesting aspect of, you know, where do people get advice from about weddings and stuff, and maybe technology is helping people to connect and sort of achieve their fantasies. So if we look at the whole thing in a broad sense, we can see that, you know, from the whole traditional aspect of it, things have sort of been moving along in a diagonal way through to a contemporary and a reality state. And I think I would like to focus on the gaps, which is either the traditional reality or a fantasy and a contemporary aspect. So what I'd like to show you, this is like the final piece. It was a Google advertisement, and so this ad showed some Japanese girls using Google and a projector to have their own, you know, fitting studio. So they were searching up dresses, and, you know, with the white background, and they sort of projected all these images onto the wall, and they were in white, so they would just jump on, and they could get a real sense of perspective of what it is to be in that dress. So this idea has a real play on the whole the tension of fantasy and reality, and I thought that was really interesting, and maybe where the possibilities could lead to. I would like to, you know, sort of tie in all these concepts sort of together and apply it to a digital experience in a bridal retail space. So that's where it's at now, and thanks everyone.